welcome to our 2025-2026 Worlds Briefing and preparing for next season meeting. Kind of what we're going to be talking about tonight. The first thing we're going to be talking about is like how to get into next year. So I know some of you guys are going to Worlds. We're going to talk about that later. The first thing I want to talk about, though, is how on earth do you prepare for next year? Because I know that probably all of you guys are going to be competing next year, or hopefully most of you guys are competing next year. I want to give you guys a bunch of details on kind of how that is. We're going to do it at a really high level. I've got a course that dives into so much more detail on how all of that works. So if you're interested in that, I can send you all the details. But we're going to, at a really high level, just cover what do I do personally to get ready for next year? How do I do this with my teams? And then what should you guys be doing to make sure that you're on track? So getting ready for next year. The second thing is I do really want to talk about VEX Worlds 2025. It is going to be interesting, probably one of the more unique World Championships we've had, just because of the nature of the game. Like, some game dynamics are going to be really interesting. And I think it's the biggest World Championship we've ever had. We've had more teams this year than we've ever had in the past, so I'm super stoked for that. And then also I want to open it up to you guys to ask questions, because, like, I can talk the whole time, but most likely some of you guys have things that you want to know as well, so I want to make sure that we address those. So whether it's something specific about robot designs, you want to say hi to me, or, you know, whatever, I would love to answer all of those as well. So, first of all, just kind of moving into next year, what do you do as a team to get ready for next year? I remember I was talking just with some teams, and, you know, the idea is that usually the season either, you know, it kind of ends around this time if you're going to Worlds, or it ended a month or so ago when you, like, lost your last competition. You're like, all right, we're done. A lot of people, though, they don't start their season until, like, September. And that's actually how I used to do it, too. I would be like, all right, well, I guess season starts in September. We'll just take a break. And don't get me wrong, taking a break is, like, really good. Like, you should do that because it's healthy to rest. But at the same time, as I started working with more and more teams, and especially started working with some of the best teams, some of the most important pre-work they do is before the season even starts, they're figuring out kind of what their intention is for the season and how they're going to go about it. And so I'm going to share that with you. The other thing they're doing, which we're not going to talk about, is getting students involved. Like, if you don't have students on your team, it turns out your team flops. I've had that happen too. That's a different conversation, though. We're going to be talking about tonight, how do you get yourself ready so that when you actually take off, you know, when you think about, like, flying an airplane, when your airplane takes off, you know immediately what direction you're going to steer. That way you head in the direction you want to go. So, a few quick tips. The first thing that I always suggest that you do is figure out, like, what you want your team to actually look like. We to say it fancy, we say, you know, define your goals, and that sounds like all high and lofty and whatnot. But it's like, just look at, like, what kind of team you want to have. Like, all right, so if I am going to have a team, it is a very different team if I'm saying I want a team that's going to win the World Championship compared to if I say I want a team that's going to, like, do good at their local competitions. If you're winning the World Championship, you're going to need to be meeting more times. You're going to need to have more resources. You're going to need to have more skill. You're going to need to build. You expect to build 4, 5, or maybe even 10 robots if you're trying to win the World Championship. If you're just trying to do well at a local competition, you can do that with 1 or 2 robots. So one of the big things, like, figure out where do you want your team to go. And usually that's something that is, like, kind of implied ahead of time, but being clear on it and having a conversation and being like, hey, just so you know, like, we're not trying to build a robot that's going to win the World Championship this year. We're kind of, like, trying to win our local competition because we've never done that before. And that doesn't mean that you can't go further and can't refine this as things go on, but having a starting point is so valuable. So, just for funsies, I thought I would share with you guys some of my goals that I've used in the past. I remember I was doing this I used to run a robotics team, or I used to, run a robotics team. We were called the Gray Bots, and every year our goal was the same. We always wanted to win the World Championship, and we did it twice. We won 2 World Championships, and we got really close, I think 1 or 2 more times, and then the other times we just, like, totally missed it, and we were nowhere close to winning the World Championship. But the point is, we knew ahead of time we were going to win the World Championship. From day one, we were building a robot that was going to win the World Championship. Or we were building a robot that would lead us to one that was going to win the World Championship. We didn't necessarily start there. And as a result, we won the World Championship, like, twice, which is huge. If you've ever tried to win the World Championship, you know how hard that is. So winning it twice is like insane. On the flip side, we had another team. That was Team 973. Team 971 was the other team. They were 2 numbers away from us. Their goal, they did not want to win the World Championship. Instead, they had some mentors who were like, we're going to build some really cool stuff. It didn't matter, like, I mean, they wanted the robot to be good, but they wanted their robot to be the coolest robot on the field, and it was. Like, every single year, I always couldn't wait to see them. Because their robot, where, like, someone would just have, like, an arm that would go up and shoot a ball or something, they would have, like, this 3-jointed mechanism that would go, like, wha-choom, and it would, like, flip out. And have you ever seen, like, those cool animations before videos where, like, all the robotics things are, like, going and the lights are blinking and the arms are moving and stuff? That's what the robots look like, but in real life. I wish I'd put a video in to show you guys. But their robots were always insanely complicated, insanely like, good at doing what they did in, like, the most complicated way possible. So I just thought they were hilarious. They were super cool. They were usually good robots. They never won the World Championship, at least while I saw them. But, like, they were good robots, but they were super cool because their goal was to create cool stuff, and they were all agreed on that ahead of time. So here's just, like, some other goals that I use sometimes. Sometimes you'll have, like, if you're a teacher, you're like, I have a simple goal about, like, I want to get my students excited about STEM. Maybe your school doesn't have a STEM program and robotics is, like, the only thing you have. That's fine. And so getting students inspired about STEM is an awesome thing. Our goal this year with one of my teams, they were perhaps lower performing team, and so they really wanted to win a tournament. They didn't get that this year. Last year they won a tournament, but that was huge for them. They won a tournament. They were like so excited. That's all they wanted to do. I've had teams they wanted to get state champs. I had a team they wanted to win state champs. So they won the state championship. They got to Worlds. They were like, "There's no hope of us winning at Worlds. We're just here to have fun," and it was awesome. They were a great team from Ohio. Maybe you have some other things. You're like, I really want to learn how to code, but I know my whole team is going to win a tournament, and we're going to kind of hold those in tandem. And that's totally fine too. But basically the point is, have some idea where you're going. If you get in a car and you're like, hey, let's go somewhere cool, that's awesome. But if you are like, hey, let's go somewhere cool, I know this really awesome spot, there's like this waterfall, we can watch the sunset, it'll be fantastic. Now you actually have a real destination and you can actually go there. So the whole point is, like, know where you're going. And don't get hung up on it. Like, things can change, that's fine. But at least know where you're pointed. So, I guess one caveat to that, this was always funny. People are like, great, that's easy, Ben. My goal is to win Worlds. It's like, chill. If you're in that position, that's awesome, and you should chase that. However, if this is your first year, or maybe, like, you know, you've done some robots before, but, like, you barely made it to finals at your last tournament, winning Worlds is probably not the right goal for you. You want to look at your resources and pick something that's achievable, but it's going to push you. You don't want to be, like, picking something because you're confident you can achieve it. You want something that's going to push you, but you don't want to put it, like, so far out there's no way that you can hit it. They say shoot for the moon and land among the stars. The thing is that, like, if you shoot for the moon and you haven't developed rocket ships yet, shooting at the moon is just going to you're going to end up, like, in some forest where no one can find you. Because you need some ability to, like, get there, otherwise you're not going to get there, is what I'm trying to say. Basically, if you're trying to find a cool destination and the mode of transportation you have is walking, you should not say, I want to go to New York City when you live in California. That's a long walk. Instead, it would be like, all right, I'm going to walk. Let's, you know, pick somewhere 5 minutes down the street. Maybe we'll do a 20-minute walk. Maybe we'll do an hour walk. Maybe we'll do a run. But you want to do something reasonable, just based on your resources. And that's honestly something that people fall into quite a bit. I had a team who perhaps overextended themselves and then had no robot at the end of the season. So it's kind of sad. Sweet. So the idea is, great. You've defined your goals. You figure out, like, this is the kind of team I want to be. What do you do next? The next thing is you got to learn the game. And this is kind of funny because people are like, great, I know how to learn the game. I'm going to read the rules. And that's awesome. That's unfortunately not the whole story. And that's also unfortunately really hard. So, learning the game, there's 2 parts to it. One is you have to understand the rules. You have to read the rules in a way that, like, you can understand what it means. And then the second part of it is understanding gameplay. This is kind of like the difference between someone who, say, say I'm learning how to drive a car. I could say, all right, I am going to read the manual, read all the laws of the road, and I'm going to learn how to drive a car that way. And you read, the owner's manual, and you're like, all right, this is how the car works, this is where the gas pedal is, this is the brake pedal, this is what the shifter does, yada, yada, yada. I feel pretty good. That's awesome. That's not going to make it so you can drive a car well. That's just reading the rules. The second thing is you have to understand how driving actually works. You need to get in a car with someone and drive with them and say, oh, I understand. So, like, there's a stoplight here, and I see it's far away, but you're gently stepping on the brake now so that when we get close to the stoplight, you don't have to slam on the brake. Or, you're at the stoplight, and you're waiting, and you look up, and you see the light turns green, but there's 5 cars in front of you. You don't take your foot off the brake. You say, all right, we're going to wait for the cars in front of me to start going before I start going. And these are things that aren't written in the laws, but you understand. Like, just by driving, that's like, well, of course, I'm not going to run into the car in front of me. So, that's kind of the difference between reading the rules and understanding gameplay. If you want an actual game example, it's like, reading the rules, you understand, like this year, that passing is important. For the number of points you get passing those balls is, like, mission critical. But understanding gameplay is understanding, all right, if I've got 2 really good teams paired together, I've got a video of this later. 2 really good teams paired together. You're going to have one robot that's sitting at the human loader passing all the balls to the other one. The other robot's going to be sitting at the goal just scoring as many balls as they can once they clear all 4 switches. If you have a really good robot and a not-so-good robot, you're going to have the really good robot. He's going to be picking up balls, bouncing them off the not-so-good robot and scoring them in the goal. Or the not-so-good robot's going to be, like, touching the balls, and the better robot's going to be running full field cycles, picking up those balls and scoring them in the goal. So that's kind of the difference between reading the rules is like knowing how the scoring works. Understanding gameplay is, all right, how is this actually going to work? Now, how do you do this? The reading the rules is a mess. If you've ever tried to read the rules, this is the rules for this year. It is a 76-page document. I don't know if you can see it up there with like tiny numbers. This is page 1 of 76. It is huge. And it's, in fact, the largest game manual VEX has ever made. I made this goofy little graph of like game manual pages. Look, back in the day, it was 17 pages with their first game manual. They got it down to 7. High rise, 7 pages, you could explain the entire game. But ever since then, it has been uphill and not the best way. We got 22, 20, 26, 29, 37, 68 pages for Slapshot, and it's just gone up from there. We're at 76 was Rapid Relay. Will next year be longer? I don't know. We'll find out. But I just thought I'd let you guys know. Don't really expect a short game manual. Kind of expect it to be long. And the reason for this big jump, by the way, it's kind of unfair. They used to split the game manual into 3 different documents, so I was only counting the main game manual. Here they added the appendices. But the point is, it's still getting longer, and I'm not reading 68 pages is hard. So yeah. The solution I've created to that, and actually just because you guys are here, I'm going to share it with you guys also, is I read through the whole game manual. That's hopefully pretty obvious. I read through the whole game manual every single year. And what I do is I create a summary sheet of the 2, it's a 1-page summary, front and back, of the most important rules in the entire game manual. So what I do is I personally read the entire game manual, and I suggest that, that's a good thing to do. But I once, well, here, let me just tell you the story, and then I'll explain the whole game manual thing. Basically, last year, I think it was, I was giving the same presentation. I was telling people, look, the game manual is really long. It's 68 pages. Or it's 76 this year. 76 pages. That's a lot of reading. Instead, here's what I suggest you do. Don't read the whole game manual. Read this rule summary, and it should give you all the details. And someone came back, and they actually reported me to VEX. They said, you got a code of conduct violation here. You said don't read the game manual. That's not what I'm trying to say. The game manual is long. The game manual is also the only official source of the rules. You shouldn't be exclusively relying on something else. But if you have ever tried to read 76 pages, it's a lot. And for me, I'm an adult who can read, and I've been reading for my whole life, more or less. And it's still hard for me to read the whole game manual. And I'm good at reading game manuals. I have been doing this literally a decade of reading game manuals. I know how to do it. And it's still hard for me to get through all 76 pages. If you're a 4th grader, it's basically unreasonable, at least for all the 4th graders I've worked with, Maybe you have someone who's really gifted. That's awesome. Most fourth graders, it is totally unreasonable for them to sit down and read a 76-page textbook, basically, especially in one sitting. So instead, what I've done is I made this shorter version that's way easier to digest. It doesn't have all the detail. It even says on the bottom, it's for reference only, not an official publication of VEX, which was probably good because when they that VEX was pretty reasonable with it. They're like, oh, okay, this isn't like, you're not giving people like fake advice. You're just trying to make life easier for people. So that's what I'm trying to do for you guys. But basically, the idea is they've got this like really cool game manual. It's the how to play the game is on the front, and then like how tournaments work is on the back. And so in general, I say, all right, just read the front. You'll understand exactly how to play the game. And then when it's time to compete in a tournament, if you've never done that before, the back explains how a tournament works. So this game manual, super valuable. I'm actually going to send you guys, well, I'll tell you what, I'll send you both. So I will send you guys this for Rapid Relay. So if you're competing at Worlds, you'll have a copy of this. It's actually super useful. It's also helpful when you show up at like the judges and you're like, I don't agree with the rule, but I can't pull up the exact reference. This has like all the rule references on it. And so you can be like, actually, I disagree with that ruling on account of G3. And they're like, oh, really? And then you can pull up G3 and you know exactly what it's going to be. I just pulled that out of my hat. G3 is not one that you'd argue most likely. But yeah, so the point is this is super useful. Just for being here, I will send you guys the Rapid Relay summary. And then also, just as like a thank you for being here, I'll also send you the one for next year's game, whatever it ends up being, after it comes out. Obviously, I can't send it to you now because I haven't made it yet because I haven't read the game manual because it hasn't been released. So, one or another, that's kind of what we're planning to do. And hopefully, I'm hoping that'll be super useful to you. Sweet. So, you're at this point. You have defined your goals. You figure out what kind of robot you want to build. You've learned the game. You understand how the game works. You understand not only the rules, you've read that stuff, but you also understand the gameplay. Oh! How do you understand gameplay? I forgot to tell you guys that. Best way to understand gameplay, and this is like so underrated, is watch YouTube. Like, this is kind of bad because like people spend way too much time on YouTube, like, you know, when you go down a YouTube rabbit hole. But this is actually useful. If you go down a VEX IQ YouTube rabbit hole, you will understand gameplay way better than anyone else. Best ways you can do it is, especially early in season, watch events. If you can find like an event that had a webcast and it was on YouTube, and so you can, you know, scroll back through that. That's super useful. Just watching people's videos, watch my videos, watch other people's videos, watch as many things on YouTube as you can about VEX IQ for like the current year. That will give you how gameplay works, and you will just be better because of it. My brother, he's one of the best drivers in the world. He is really good because of the amount of YouTube he watches. Like in his free time, I'll be like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm watching robots." And he learns so many strategies and nuances and random ways that you can play the game and random situations you get into and get out, how to get out of them just by watching like videos of people playing robots. So super good thing to do. I highly suggest it. So you're doing great. You've defined your goals. You figured out what kind of robot you want. You've learned the game. You read the game summary at least, and then maybe you read the game manual. You sketched up some robots. Is the next step. Basically, the idea is, it's great now that you understand how this robot thing works. But how do you get this on paper? The idea is we do something called sketching robots. And most people are like, how do you sketch a robot? So I've got some cool pictures I'll show you. Basically, the idea is you just want to really quickly come up with ideas. And if you come up with ideas and you think of them in your head, have you guys ever been in a situation where you have to do some things? Like, you know, maybe you have your homework to do and you got to feed the dog and you got to walk home and you got to remind your mom to go grocery shopping for, I don't know, chocolate chips because you're making chocolate chip cookies. And you've got like 4 or 5 things in your brain and you're trying to remember all of them. And you're like, man, I have so many things. I have so many things. I have so many things to do. I just can't remember them all. But then you write them down and you're like, bro, there's only 5 things I have to remember. What's going on? The thing is, when you think of ideas in your head, our brain goes like 1, 2, 3, many. Once you have more than 3 or 4 things in your head, it starts to do something called looping, and our brain just like can't hold on to all of these pieces of information. So instead what we do is we write them down, and that's what to-do lists are, and that's why most people who are like good at life have some kind of system where they write things down. That's why we use calendars. That's why we write things down to remember them. So that's awesome. When you do robots, you can only come up with a few designs in your head, and then you actually have to get them out of your head to come up with new designs. And by getting them out of your head, it'll help inspire new designs. So what we say is all right, go ahead and sketch some robots. Let me show you kind of what that looks like. So here are some cool pictures of robot sketches. Here's one. This is a robot, I'll tell you, from not this year, not last year. This was from Rise Above. This was a long, long time ago. And basically how this works is the game was you had to make these like triple stacks of these risers, they were called, and we wanted to make the simplest robot you possibly could. And so we're like, all right, if we're gonna make a triple stack, we're just gonna have like a arm and it goes up and down and it like scores the things. You're like, that's awesome. Boom, I got a robot. And this worked great, and in fact, we actually made this robot. His name was Eclipse. If you are like really adventurous, you can try and find him on my YouTube channel. I think he's still there. So Eclipse was, I want to say, like my second video I ever posted. Great robot. I just like to keep him in the presentation for history's sake. But this is a cool robot. That same game, we were like, well, you know, one arm is pretty good at like scoring these things. What if we had more arms though? We got to make a stack of 3. Why not have 3 arms? And so we did. This robot was called Sandstorm. This was a robot from a long time ago that also is, I think, still on my YouTube channel. And I want to say he played, like the match that I have is played to the song Sandstorm because, I don't know, I thought it was cool back then. So you got triple arm thing. You're like trying to pick up these 3 risers, make this massive stack. The idea is if you could hold 3 at a time in 3 different arms, you'd probably be faster. And boom, there it is. You can actually see 1, 2, 3 arms on this robot. So the point is, a robot sketch like this will take you 30 seconds to make. I have 0 art skills, and this took me 30 seconds to make. So if you have art skills, you can probably make it in 20. But the point is, drawing something out like this is super helpful, and this is kind of what it looks like. Now, I'm showing you guys a bunch of like robots from a long time ago. Here's one from 2 years ago. This is full volume. Basically, you had to not pick up one, but you had to pick up many, many of these cubes. You'd kind of store them, and you had to drop them in a goal. This is what that robot kind of looked like. So you can see, if you look back, here's like that intake roller. There's a tray. You got a drive base and an arm. So here's that intake roller up front. Here's that tray where we're storing the cubes. Here's that arm back here, and then here's the drive base. So same robot. It's kind of cool. Now, every robot I showed you, you actually like, or I built it. Realistically, I draw like 20 plus drawings, and I build like 3 of them. The reason is most of my drawings are horrible. I think, so there's this issue that happens when you draw where you think that you came up with the most brilliant idea. I was having a conversation with some people last night, and they were disagreeing on something. They couldn't remember. They couldn't decide whether someone was a pilot or not, and they were disagreeing. And one person was like, you see, I think my reasons are just better than your reasons. And the other person's, well, yes, of course you do. That's why we're disagreeing. The point is, if you come up with a robot, you will naturally fall in love with it, which is not great. Like, it would be best if you could draw robots and be like, these are all awesome ideas, but I don't really care about them. And hopefully you get to a point like that. But realistically, when you draw a robot the first time, you fall in love with it. And you're like, this robot is amazing. And then someone else looks at your robot and they're like, that robot is garbage. And you're like, thanks. But realistically, the first few robots you draw are not going to be perfect. And part of why we have you draw so many is because as you draw robots, you're going to notice some things. And as you draw robots, you're just going to get better. I remember Chris Lawson, this awesome guy, super smart. He's really good at like just programming and stuff. So he was our like team's lead programmer. It came to the first day we were all like drawing up our robots. And, you know, everyone had, like, kind of the same robot. It had, like, some kind of arm or elevator on the front. It was picking up the game piece, scoring it up high. And his robot was very interesting. It had no ability to pick anything up. It didn't have an elevator. It had, like, this giant conveyor that was supposed to conveyor the game pieces into the goal. And we were like, I don't think that robot's tall enough to reach the goal, Chris. And he was like, oh, it's a great robot. I'm sure it is. And we reasoned with him, and then eventually he was like, all right, maybe it wasn't the best robot. But the point is, your first robot, it makes so much sense in your head, but then, like, you get to it, and you're like, oh, this is a little harder than I thought. So, the point is, like, draw lots of robots, don't fall in love with them. And as you draw more and more, take inspiration, be like, oh, robot number 3 and robot number 17 look really cool. I wonder if there's a way I can merge them, take the best of both worlds, and, you know, get an even better robot, just like Katy Perry. So, yeah, that's one thing. Oh, the other thing. There's this girl on my team named Allie Hines, awesome lady, who was really genuinely good at art. If you look at my drawings, you know that I'm not good at art because my drawings have lots of labels on them to indicate like what things are. I'll draw like a box with 4 legs, and I'll be like cow. That way you know it's a cow, or a horse. They look the same, but you know they have lots of labels so that you can tell what things are. So my drawings are not very good. Allie was genuinely really good at art, and so we came to the section where it was time to like draw robots, and she drew the most impressive robot you can imagine. It was on a whiteboard, which makes it even harder. If you've tried to draw like good-looking drawings on a whiteboard, it's like basically impossible. She's got like this 3D isometric view of the robot. She's got like all the intake and the shooter and the conveyor system all inside. This robot had something called flails, and so she had the flails. She had everything. Yeah, I was genuinely amazed. But the point is, it took her half an hour to make the thing. I made my drawing in 30 seconds, and sure, it had a lot of labels and it looked ugly, but at least I got more robot ideas down than she did. And so the point is, don't draw good-looking robots, draw ugly robots. Once you settle on one, you can make it look good if like that's what makes you happy. But realistically, draw ugly robots. That's kind of, I don't know, word of advice. Make lots of them. Let's see. Just some like other random things. I forgot I had this slide. Basically, simpler is better. It is better if you can make a robot that does less, especially early on. And kind of going hand in hand with that is optimize for a few goals. I would rather do half of the things. I would rather say this year, I would rather be really good at shooting the balls in the goal and clearing the switches than be good at passing, be good at shooting, be good at clearing, all that good stuff. There was this great video from Caution Tape this year. If you follow Caution Tape Robotics, they're an incredible robotics team. They have like some of the most advanced robots in VEX IQ. It's a crazy robot that was like a jack of all trades, supposed to be master of all. It had the ability to pass. It had like a phase-through passing mechanism. It had the ability to shoot high. It could shoot low. It had like a 4-motor drivetrain, a 4-motor intake. It was insane. Just tons and tons of motor sharing. Lots of really complex engineering. Great robot, but because of its complexity, it ended up, I don't know if they still have their copy together. I assume they do. But the point is, it didn't become a meta. It wasn't popular just because it was too complicated. A better example is even back in pitching in. If you remember the yellow balls we were throwing into the goal, there's like this big, what do you call it? I don't know. It was like a big cup, 9-inch by 9-inch cup. It was about this big in the middle of the field. And you just had to throw these yellow balls in. The best robots at doing it were robots that could carry 4 balls at a time. Carrying more than 4 balls ended up being complicated. There were 6, 8, 10 ball robots. None of them were good because it was so complicated to have to like deal with that many balls all at once. Best robots in the world were the 4-ball robots. So, optimize for a few goals and focus on simplicity, especially early on. Obviously, your robot will get more complicated later, but you don't need to start with the most complicated robot on the planet. Let's see. Oh, the last thing. Or second to last thing. Start small, grow fast. That's simple. It's like, I often will tell teams, have 2 VEX IQ sets. And this is obviously twice as expensive, but if you have 2 VEX IQ sets, you can start with a really simple robot, build it in like a week or 2, and then go on and get something better. This is actually how, all right. I told you, I have a team this year, we kind of like stopped doing robotics partway through the year. I had a team, they qualified for the state championship in Southern California, which is really hard to do, and the way they did it was by going to an early season event. So, this team, we would meet like an hour and a half a week, which if you've done VEX IQ, you know that's like almost nothing. So we had very little time, very few resources, and we wanted to get to states. And so we did that by competing at a really early season event. So if you want like a pro strat, well, there's 80 people on this call, so we can make this work. If you want a pro strat for like how to qualify for state championship, even if you're not that good of a team, the best way to do it is be really good. So spend some time, make a really good, like, simple robot. Not the best robot in the world, but, like, a good robot. Make it fast and get really good at driving it. Compete in, like, an early season event. So you're looking, like, October, November, maybe early December, but that's kind of getting late. But you compete in the October, November events. They're not very competitive. They're usually pretty easy to win. And if you have a good robot, Not the best robot, but like a solid robot with a lot of driver practice, you can usually blow away the competition, be ranked first or second, pair with the best team there, and win. So, kind of a fun hack. And if you're like, that sounds hard, I really want to do it though, register for 2 or 3 events, 2 or 3 early season events, or register for everyone in the state. And what you'll find is as you continue to go to these events, you're going to get like, basically, you'll have more and more chances because maybe it turns out there was one team who like put in a ton of hours during the summer and they beat you. So register for lots of events, especially those early season events. That's like, if you have a team and you really want to get states, that's kind of like the pro tip that I usually give to do that. So start with something simple, and then once you have that robot, qualify for states, you're like, boom, we continue attending events and make better robots. That way you can prepare and, you know, continue getting better and better. But starting with something really simple and then rebuilding, and rebuilding is how you get good, rather than just trying to start with a perfect robot. This last one's just simple. Like, the best thing you can do in robotics is realize that you're not very smart. I will tell you, I am not very smart, and that's silly coming from someone like me who, like, this is my life. I do robots. But if you're trying to win, you are not going to come up with the best design. I am not going to come up with the best design. The best design is actually created by a bunch of people who all work together through YouTube, through competitions, through all kinds of different means, and just like build off each other's robots to create what we call the meta, or the best robot, the like classic robot that everyone ends up with at Worlds. So the key is, you know, start building your own robot, do really good, then watch videos, watch competitions, see what robots are winning, and take the pieces of the best robots, put those together into your robot. So don't copy it piece for piece, but basically, like any team who's really good, they're going to be basing the robot off what we call the meta, the best robots that we see at competition. So that's kind of a fun fact also. Sweet. So you got that. The last thing that I always say is like, try it out. Kind of in line with like copy the meta. If you're not building and testing your robot, like, your robot's not going to work. I remember I was coaching a team and they were saying like, hey, you know, Ben, we just finished our robot 2 nights before the competition. We're at this competition. We're not doing well. What's wrong with the robot? They tried to build one of my robots. And I was like, well, what's wrong is actually you built it 2 days before the competition. If you don't have a few solid weeks at least to like tune in and refine your robot to make it perfect, you're not going to end up with the best robot at the competition. You might have something solid, but in reality, the best robots are ones that are built and tested and drive practice and then iterated on and made better and made better and made better. And you have like lots of improvements, and then eventually you'll rebuild into something similar but better, and then you go better and better and better by slowly improving it. So the whole idea is like build your robot and then kind of never finish that cycle of iteration where you're building it, you're testing it, you're trying it again and again and again. So building robots. Oh, here, this is just a funny graphic. If you've been to some of my classes, you've seen this before. This is like what most people think building robots are when they get started with VEX. They're like, oh, it's easy. So there's like a right robot and a wrong robot, right? This is, you build the wrong robot, it goes that way. You build the right robot, it's kind of a steep uphill climb, but you'll just like build and build and build, and boom, you'll just reach success. And you'll have this awesome robot. That's not how it goes. Actually, it turns out the road to success, you're always on it. But you're going to start building a robot, and your robot's going to fail, and then it's going to fail again, and then you're going to think your robot's going this way, but oops, actually that robot's not going to work anymore. That was made illegal by a rule change. It looks like we're going to have to go this way. We got a detour. Oh no, our robot broke again. And it kind of looks like we're backtracking now, and then here we go. At least we're getting higher. We're going up. Our robot broke again. It failed again. We got to rebuild. And you just keep going up and up and up, and you never quite reach that idea of a best robot. But it's somewhere kind of up there, and you, as you kind of get better and better, you certainly are much higher than you were when you started, but you never like objectively reach the best robot. So that's kind of how things go. So that's all I want to do for in terms of like how to get ready for next season. Hopefully that was useful for you. If you're like, Ben, that was awesome, but I want more. That was a super high level overview. I whizzed through like what I usually take an hour or hour and a half to cover, and I did it in 20 minutes. So, in light of that, I want to invite you guys to, how did I do this thing? There we go. I want to invite you guys to, it's called my preseason course. So if you guys are interested, there's a paid course, so I know not everyone is in the running for that, but if you're interested, this is a paid course. We dive into, in detail, how do you prepare for next season? I give you a ton of resources. Me just send the link in the chat in case you actually want to attend. But this is where you sign up. Oh, I do have 2 sign-up pages, so yours might look different from that, but don't freak out. Basically, the idea is, at this course, I'm going to cover a ton of stuff with you. This is the course from last year, just to kind of show you guys. Obviously, it's like an hour-long course. We cover tons and tons of information about like how to get ready for next year, all that good stuff. Oh, be quiet. I'm going to see if I can like scrub through the video. Talking about how to manage your resources, talking about how to draw robots. There's just me talking. I have like a cool demo there. How to build good robots. More of me talking. I'm not going to be able to find the points I want. Oh, well. Down here is just some other fun resources you get. These I'm actually going to give all of you guys, so don't sign up if this is all you want. But this is like the rule summary. I'll give you rapid relay. I'll also give you the new one. So here's the rapid relay. That's not the rapid relay. This is the rapid relay one. So I'll give you guys this. This is super cool. But don't sign up for that because I'm going to give it to you guys all for free. You also get a bunch of, where is it? Robot mechanisms. This is super useful. So at the beginning of the year, I will give you guys a document of basically all the best robot mechanisms for the new game. So obviously, you know, something like drivetrain is going to be on here, and you're like, how is this useful? But say you decide your robot needs a drivetrain. You need to drive around the field. Zoom in, and you're like, boom, I've got details on how to build 3 different drivetrains. I can change the size of these. I can make these, you know, instead of 2x16s, this could be a 2x20. Now I've got details on this. This is how I have built. All right, there's this team down in, I was coaching, and they were like, they had just graduated from building with instructions, right? They built the robot from instructions and kind of made some minor modifications. I was like, guys, you need to be a lot better. They were the ones who would like consistently rank the bottom 5 in like our tournaments, which was kind of sad because they were also the host school for one of our tournaments. But one or another, they're like ranking bottom 5, and I'm like, all right, guys, we got to get you some better robots. And so I come down, I coach them for a few days, and what I did is I said, all right, here's what we're gonna do. Here's some robots. We drew up a bunch of robots on the whiteboard. They picked some, and I was like, all right, here's how you're gonna build it. You're going to build mechanisms. You're going to build parts of the robot. And the first thing they built was the drive base. And what I did is I put this on the big projector screen. I zoomed it in. And they were able to look at this. And it took a few tries. And they messed up a few times. But this was like how they built their robot. And then here, this was for this year. So arms were important this year if you were trying to build things that went in the low goal. We talked about flywheels. I think you guys saw some flywheel robots. We talked about catapults. Those were super useful this year. If you remember, like, that's how most people shoot. We talked about different ways to shoot with catapults. And so you get all these details. Obviously, this is last year's, so you're going to have more details that are specific to this year. So if you're interested in signing up, I'd love to have you guys there. I do want to get into the second half of this, though, with the Worlds briefing. So we're going to switch over to that. If you have more questions on that, hang on. We'll probably be done with Worlds briefing in, like, 15 minutes. And we'll dive into it. But point is, I really hope you guys are able to get there. Oh, I forgot to tell you. If you sign... All right, so I have been, like, having a time with return policies recently. I bought a pair of shoes. It turns out one of them was defective. I, like, had 2 shoes, and I walked on them for, like, 2 weeks, and then, like, there was a giant hole in one of them. And the other one was totally fine. I was like, guys, I think this is defective. I brought it back to the store. They gave me, like, a huge hassle about trying to return the thing. It was REI. They're usually really good about refunds. Amazon, I was, like, having another issue with the refunds. Amazon's usually pretty good, but, like, it's a lot of work to package the thing up and send it back and all that whatnot, and you got to fill out the form. So, one way or another, I've been having a time with refunds recently, and it's not been super fun. So I was like, you know what? I want to make this super easy for you guys. I don't want you guys to have a hard time with refunds. So, here's how I'm going to do refunds. If you guys want to sign up for this, sign up for it. Come attend the session. Come download the documents. They're all PDFs, so you, like, literally hit the download button and it's yours. Take all the resources you want, and then at the end of it, if you decide, hey, that wasn't worth what I paid for it, that's fine. Just send me an email, and I will refund it all to you. No, I'm not going to go back and forth with you. I'm not going to, like, try and deal with it. I am tired of dealing with refunds myself. The last thing I need is to, like, go back and forth with 20 people about why they shouldn't refund. I want to provide something that's worthwhile to you guys. So if you guys don't think it's worth it, sign up. Try it. Take the course. Take the recording. You'll have lifetime access to the recording. Take all the documents. Take all the everything. download the documents, save them to your computer so you can reference them whenever. And then if you're like, Ben, that wasn't worth it, just contact me. I'll send you a refund. No questions asked, no strings attached. Basically, I'm just frustrated with refunds. So I'm going to try and, like, I want to do right by you guys. If this isn't worth it, I want you guys not to have to pay for it. So if you're interested in joining me, I think I threw the link in Slack, in Zoom. There it is. Sweet. All right, that's enough about that. I really want to get into Worlds. This is, like, the fun part of it for me. Initially, this was a Worlds briefing only meeting, and then I realized not everyone's going to Worlds, and so I wanted to be inclusive to everyone. But let's talk about VEX Worlds. This is like the fun part to me. I love this. So VEX Worlds is, in my opinion, the best robotics competition in the world. It is not staged at all. I'm not going to name which ones are staged, but there are some major robotics competitions that may be staged. It is the best robotics competition in the whole world. In my opinion, VEX does a really good job putting it on, at least when I've gone. It is fun, it's exciting, it's intense. But there's, like, if you want to actually win and not just enjoy it, like, you should enjoy yourself. But if you actually want to win, there are a few things that really good teams do. Like I said, I've won the World Championship twice. I've won my division a bunch more times than that I can't quite count. And then been to the World Championship, I think. At least my teams have been to the World Championship every single year except for COVID because World was canceled. So, yeah, for whatever that's worth. We qualified, but we didn't attend because there was none. So, I want to just share with you guys some of, like, quick tips and tricks to make sure that you are on track for a really good Worlds experience. So, first of all, the first tip that I usually give teams is, like, be respectful and helpful to other teams. We'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like, but, like, these other teams are most likely going to be your teammates at some point. And I've got some fun stories of how that happened. So, be, like, respectful and helpful to other teams. Other things, be confident in the rules. We'll talk about some of the most important rules in a sec. But the truth is that, like, students are the only ones who can contest the rules after a match, and as a ref, they usually enforce that pretty aggressively at Worlds. So, know what the rules are, know your rule references, have a reference sheet, have my reference sheet, have your own reference sheet, whatever you want to do. But be confident in the rules. Third one is, like, prepping for matches, and we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. I actually am going to give you guys a cool document to help with that if you don't already have it. And last one is focus. This one is, like, if you're going to do nothing else, being really focused and being really good at focus is going to set you, like, miles ahead of everyone else. First one, pretty straightforward, like, be respectful. The first thing is, like, be nice. I remember, basically, the idea is if you are nice to teams, they're more likely to be nice back to you and not give you a hard time when you're paired up in a match with them. I remember there was a robotics competition I was competing in. It was first robotics competition. And they actually... So in that competition, instead of, like, automatically pairing you up, they would pick, like, teams would pick each other for who they wanted to be paired up with in finals, which was cool. But it also meant that if you didn't have a good relationship with teams, you could get DNP'd, which means do not pick. DNP is do not pick. You get DNP'd by a team, and then they would never pick you. And so we would, we'd be taking notes on all of our teams and being like, this team we like, this team we don't, so on and so forth. And then we would write them, but we had to write this down. We write it in our notebooks. But what was interesting is we would not write our team number in the notebooks. That way, if we accidentally left a notebook somewhere or lost a notebook or something happened, no one could track it back to us and be like, oh, they didn't like us, we're not going to pick them. So we were a little secretive about it. But the point is, like, be nice to other teams. Don't criticize teams. Don't be upset with other teams. Be nice to them. Be helpful. That paid off quite a bit. Helping others when needed. I remember I was at a robotics competition, and there were these guys. We were going to be against them in a match. And it was at the World Championship. I think it was the finals. And we were against them. And we were like, all right, we're going to be playing our hearts out. We're going to be working as hard as we can to defeat you. But their robot broke in, like, some critical way. And we were like, we really would like you to play broken, but for the most part, I would rather play a fair match with you fixed. And so we ended up helping them. We helped them fix the robot. We gave them a bunch of our tools and our parts, and we put the robot together. They were all ready to go. We played an awesome match. We actually ended up winning, which was kind of cool. But then the flip side of that is the next year We were paired up with them again in a competition, and it turns out they were better than we were, and kind of is like they ended up picking us, because remember this was a competition where you got to pick robots, and so they ended up picking us, and then we won the competition together. So they were the best robot at the competition. We were not the best robot, but they picked us because, in part probably because we were good, but also in part because they knew we were a really good team and we've been helpful to them. So kind of a nice thing, like be nice to other people. All right, now let's get into some like hard details. Know the rules. The fact is, according to, I think it's T3, students are the only ones who are able to actually go up and contest the rules. So if you think your match is scored incorrectly, you had better be the one to go up and talk to the ref about it. So just some rules to know specifically for this year. SC7 is that it's scored in real time. They actually encourage you in the game manual to call out your score. So, you know, say I pass the ball to my partner, it's good to be like pass 1, pass 2, pass 3, so on and so forth, as you're counting the points. And then as balls are going in, you know, score 1, score 2, score 3, or whatever. That way, at least you and the refs are on the same page throughout the entire match about how many times they score, and then, you know, if something goes wrong or what have you, then the refs are able to talk to you and be like, hey, actually, you're one behind, and they can tell you that, like, in the match. So, scoring in real time, it's kind of rough. They're not allowed to view match video or photos, so it has to be done, like, there. It's rough, but it works. So, yeah. Counting things out, that's something great that the human player can do if they're not too busy. Other rules, G11, you need 3 students at the field. This is one that, like, so many teams fell victim to. So, if you're going to VEX Worlds, hopefully you have 3 students who are coming. If you don't, you, like, need to find a 3rd student, because the rule is, it can be at VEX Worlds you find this 3rd student. The rule is you cannot have the same student be human player and driver. I know a lot of tournaments were lenient on it, but the fact is, at VEX Worlds specifically, they're not lenient on it usually. And if you have 2 students driving your robot and a 3rd student who's like, you need a 3rd student to be throwing the balls back across the field. Like, that is super important if you don't have 3 students. You are allowed to go talk to other teams and convince someone to, like, temporarily join your team, but it's a little bit rough. There is even value in actually bringing 4 students to the competition. 3 of yours would be on your team, and then 1 of yours is if your partner is missing a student, then you can supply that for them. At VEX Worlds, it's probably less of an issue. At, like, local tournaments, that's super valuable. But I would say biggest thing, make sure you have 3 students, because, yeah. No, there have been lots of teams who had really rough times because they did not have 3. So, make sure you have 3 students. Next rule that is super important. Robots can be modeled after online resources. So if you're, like, getting in an argument with someone about, is your robot legal because you saw a robot online, hypothetically, like maybe you saw Flyby in my video and your robot looks kind of like Flyby. That's okay. And if you want the details on that, it's G2 and the REC Student Center Policy, page 4. There's greenbacks on mechanical robot design that basically says, as long as you're the one who built it, you're the one who, like, actually designed it, you describe how it works. If you got inspiration from online, that's fine. If you got step-by-step instructions from, like, the VEX Black Market, that's not fine. And they can get you on that. But, like, if you just looked at some robots, you looked at some pictures that I sent, actually, if you looked at my pictures, fun fact, all my pictures are proofed by REC. So I send them to REC, and they, like, verify that my pictures are good, and then they send them back to me, and then I post them on my channel. So if you're using my pictures, you're totally fine. You can actually tell them that. If you're using someone else's pictures, then, you know, that's fine too. Most pictures are totally fine. It's just like if you have step-by-step instructions, that's the only thing that's illegal, unless you use, like, Swish instructions. And then the last thing that, this is just, like, such a common violation, and if you know how to use it, it is so valuable. The fact is, your robot cannot cross there's a line on the field. You can't cross the line while the human player is letting go of the ball. So, like, basically, the human player can be holding the ball when you're across the line. The human player can have already let go of it, but it's that instant they let go of the ball, the robot has to be, like, back behind the line. So he can come forward, he can go back, and then you let go of the ball and he comes forward again. And back, and then he comes forward again. Great video of that, actually, here. I'll show it to you guys. Someone just sent me this video. Come on. There we go. So you can kind of see, as she lets go of the ball, the robot's not across the line. But as soon as she lets go, the robot crosses the line, grabs the ball, and is actually able to score. I think there's like 30 some odd balls in a match. It is incredible. Now, this isn't a well-played match because obviously they know that they would need to like start scoring balls in these top goals to clear more switches in order to increase their score. But the point is, like, you see how many balls they're scoring, and they're able to do it by really kind of taking advantage of that rule. Now, just like some kind of tips and tricks to hopefully make it easier for you guys to do this, is as you're trying to, like, if you're trying to do something like this, you know, being right here, being able to cross the line and uncross it super easily is really important. If you're trying to do this kind of strategy, if you watch her, she drops the ball often on like this front bar or the back bar of the load station. That lets it bounce back and forth for another like half second. So instead of dropping it straight through the hole, you kind of drop it on the front bar, but like almost in, and play with it, practice. And that kind of makes it bounce a little bit longer, and you can control how long it bounces by like how you drop it in. So just like practice, you know, sit in front of the load station for an hour and drop a bunch of balls in. So if you're playing at that level, and it does get to that level at VEX Worlds, that's something that you can kind of play with. Also figuring out a clear system of communication, who's going to be in charge of dropping the ball, who's leading basically between the human player and the driver. You want to make sure that you never like drop a ball while they're across the line, but at the same time you want to make sure that like you guys know how to communicate that, so that either the human player is leading and the human player drops the ball, and as soon as the driver sees like the human player's hand let go, they cross the line. Or if the opposite is true, the human player is going to wait for the driver to be clear and then drop the ball immediately. So either way can work. You just have to be clear on that ahead of time. If that made no sense, then don't worry. You're probably not at that level, and that's fine. One other thing. So if you look at this robot, you're like, Ben, that robot is garbage. It has no ability to score high. How is this robot going to rank second so that it can be paired with someone really good like this, so that it can win its division at Worlds? And the fact is, there's a bunch of rules in VEX that describe how you can modify your robot. Basically, the idea is you can make some major modifications to robots between matches. They're called different configurations. You have to inspect in all of them. But if you want, say that I have a robot, and I want to make a robot that like looks like this, but then is also able to like do this thing. So what I could do is I could have a strap-on intake that straps on the front here. This is a catapult already. You can actually kind of see that. At least I think it's a catapult. It looks like it could be a catapult. I don't know if it is in this robot. But I could basically take off this like flippy doohickey and instead just strap on an intake, and then you see how this robot is basically this robot. It's just the back rollers are in the vertical orientation instead of horizontal. So the point is, with some modifications, and the modifications like that are totally legal, then your robot you could do both. This robot's actually fascinating because I think it's a stationary robot. So it has a stick that starts touching the wall, and then it like just, you put the robot here at the beginning of the match, and it sits here the whole time. So you would probably want to add wheels also so that you could drive. But what you can do is, you know, you pull off your wheels if you want a stationary robot. That's interesting. I didn't see that before this meeting. But yeah, so modifications are legal. If you want to talk more about modifications, come talk to me during the Q&A, and I'm happy to address that more. Sweet. All right. We got to keep going, though. Practicing and preparing with teams. Oh, this is, like, so good. So the second thing is make sure you practice and prepare with your teams. If you don't play a practice match, especially at Worlds, if you don't play a practice match with every single team that you're going to compete with, like, you're doing something wrong. Every single team, you should play at least one match with them to make sure you know how your strategy is going to go. I always suggest also drawing out your strategy ahead of time. So like, here, where is it? Screen on. There we go. So here's like I'm going to send you guys this after the meeting. The rule summary. There it is. Basically, this is a strategy map. You just print out a bunch of these and you draw like, all right, my robot's going to start here. It's going to go over here and it's going to hang out here. While your robot starts here, goes here, and is going to be passing balls. Whatever you want to do, but having some ability to communicate that and then practice that is super critical. So make sure you're preparing with your teams. And the last thing, probably most important, is just focusing. It is so easy to get distracted. I remember would always like kind of like be laughing inside when you see those teams who like have the robot sitting on the table and they're just like playing video games at the tournament. And maybe that's been you, but realistically, like if you're at the World Championship and you were trying to be the best you can, you got to be focused. You have to be in a position where you're able to be on it 100% of the time. When you're at the competition, you're prepping the robot, you're fixing it, you're checking the robot, you're practicing with the robot, you're testing things, you're refining code. Hopefully not. Hopefully your code's all refined, but you're, always there, prepping, strategizing with your next match, whatever it looks like. The idea is, well, here, I got a story for you guys. I was at 2017, we were playing, I was in a different robotics competition, not VEX, but there had been 2 world championships in 2 different cities. One was in Dallas, one was in Detroit, I think. Yeah. Dallas and Detroit, they wanted to determine who the best robot was between 2 of them. And so we all went to New Hampshire, of all places, to go play like one final standoff match between the 2 champions. And it was called the Festival of Champions, FOC for short. And we went to FOC, and we were the worst alliance. Like coming in, we had all the stats, we had all the data. We knew that our alliance was worse than theirs. But the night before, our alliance was in a conference room at the hotel. We were planning, we were strategizing. We had like 3 different strategies we could all execute on. We were all super clear on how it was going to work. We had really clear expectations of what was going to happen. The other team was playing volleyball in the pool. And they probably had more fun than us. But realistically, we were the worst team. And we came to the matches and we won the first 2 matches. It was a best of 5. If it was best of 3, we would have had everything. But it was best of 5. We won the first 2 matches before they finally got their bearings together and realized, like, oh, actually, we have to play these guys. Like, they're actually doing good stuff. And so it was kind of sad. We were so close to winning. It would have been a great underdog story, but it wasn't. But one or another, the point is be focused, be present, be there at your competition, strategizing, working with teams, getting everything ready, not being distracted, all that stuff. So, super valuable. Make sure you're focused. Sweet. So, I think that is all. Again, if you're interested in joining me for next year, or sorry, for that preseason course, I threw the message in Slack and the link in Slack. I'll throw it in one more time in case there's people who just joined. Basically, if you want a bunch of details on how to be the best team that you can for next year, that is, I'll throw it in Slack, or sorry, in the chat, and you guys will be able to sign up for that. Super cool. We got to talk about predictions for next year. So I was hoping I would have more information. Fun story. So every single year, VEX releases a game name reveal, and it is coming out tomorrow at 9 a.m. When I scheduled this meeting, I scheduled it about 2 weeks ago. They hadn't announced that yet. Instead, I looked at when they usually release it. They usually release the game name about 2 weeks ago. And last year they did, the year before they did, the year before that they did that too. This year they're just 2 weeks late. And so I scheduled my meeting literally the night before it was released. And I was so frustrated. But oh well. So I'm going to send you guys a video as soon as I'm done. As soon as I'm done analyzing the game name reveal. So I can tell you guys all of the fun things that we can from that. Also, VEX didn't release as many good hints as they usually do. But usually they have some good hints. So I just want to show you guys where I would find them. So I usually go to a very advanced website called vexrobotics.com. Turns out VEX already knows what the game is. And what you do is you go to IQ. I'm going to shop all products. And if you go to VEX IQ products, sort by newest released, you can usually tell which which products were released for which challenge. So here, for example, I'll jump back a few years. Where is this is just all hardware. Come on. Is it here? Basically, for example, before this year with shooting and whatnot, they released a bunch of strings and winches and stuff, and that was potentially indicative of a shooting game. That was kind of cool. Before they released Slapshot, they released... What did they release for Slapshot? Oh, I forget. Before pitching in, they had some cool rollers that they released and whatnot. So every year, they usually release 1 or 2 cool products that gives you a little bit of hint towards the game. So far, all I see they've released is a 1x beam pack, which is you probably should have released that earlier, but that's okay. So they just released some beam packs. They released some pneumatics, so my guess is there's going to be a lot of different ways to score They re-released pneumatics. Pneumatics were released earlier than this. So my guess is there's going to be a ton of different ways to score, and some of the best teams are going to use pneumatics. Basically, like, I'm assuming that if you want to be really good this year, you're probably going to need to use pneumatics. I don't know for sure, but that would kind of be my guess. It's probably going to be a more complicated game. If I took a wild guess, I'd say there's probably going to be more than one game piece, or one type of game piece, I mean. So, like, you know how last year, Rapid Relay, there was a single ball, right? And you're scoring that in the goal. My guess is there's going to be, like, multiple shapes of game pieces this year. It's not just all going to be the same thing. And that does a lot to kind of slow down gameplay and make robots more complicated and make it harder to build good robots. So I'm assuming that's what they're going to do. I'm not sure. Again, I'll send you guys a video with hopefully more details once that, like tomorrow or the day after or something. But that's kind of my predictions so far. I know I didn't give you guys much. In previous years, they released a ton of great stuff, and I think it was like pitching in. We were able to figure out it was going to be this like shooting game where you're going to have a bunch of little balls to shoot, and it was awesome. But yeah. So I want to move into some Q&A. We don't have a ton of time. Oh, I did forget to tell you. I promised you guys a story about this. Also, where is it? This little scar. It looks way better now than it used to. But if you're curious, like, where did you get that thing on your face from? Wow, you can barely see it. So basically, 2 weekends ago, I was backpacking. So I was like out in nature. I was having a great time. There was this beautiful waterfalls. So we're like hiking up this trail, and along this trail, we've got our huge packs on. We got our poles. We're like hiking up this trail. And there's like this beautiful river, and it's cascading down these waterfalls. We get to like a series of cascades, so a bunch of waterfalls all stacked on top of each other. We're like, oh, this is amazing. And so we throw down our packs, we leave everything behind, and get into our swimming gear, and we start climbing up the waterfalls. Because like basically the way a waterfall works is the water like starts falling down from the top, and it drills a hole. The water force over time drills a hole in the bottom, and so you end up with all these great swimming holes, and there's a waterfall falling into it. And then above it, there's another swimming hole with another waterfall. And so it's absolutely beautiful. So we're climbing up these rocks next to the waterfall. And on one of the rocks, it's all slippery and wet. And so, of course, I slip, and I fall on my shoulder because I'm holding a rope, so I can't, like, use my hands to catch myself. But I fall on my shoulder, and I, like, tap my head against the rock. And if you've ever gotten a, like, head injury, you know that heads bleed like crazy. So I had, like, blood all over my face. But one way or another, no like actual brain damage or anything. Everything is totally fine. I didn't even get a concussion from it. I just got like a nice little cut, and it looked really scary. And then it turns out it was totally fine. So, yeah, fun fact. Most likely you'll never hear that story again, because by next time you see me, even next week, this is gonna be like fully healed, and it won't exist. So there will be no story to tell. But yeah, all right. I think that's out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and move into Q&A. I'm really excited to hear some of you guys' questions. I'm going to open up chat, so if you guys want to send your message in chat, you're more than welcome to. If you want to ask me a question by raising your hand, you're welcome to also. We have a limited amount of time, so I'm going to, like, pick a few people. I'm not going to pick absolutely everyone, most likely.